Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney. Disney could be entering a death spiral. A death spiral is when basically everything goes wrong and one problem goes on top of another problem and things just get worse and worse. They're losing millions of dollars, really hundreds of millions of dollars on their theatrical releases. Disney is supposed to be making a lot of money on those theatrical releases, not losing hundreds of millions of dollars. Their stock has gotten the third warning that I've seen, where experienced financial analysts from Wall Street, not just us YouTube guys, start to sound like us YouTube guys saying, hey, Disney's got problems. You probably shouldn't be buying their stock. I'll get into that in more detail. The theme parks are not expected to do the business that they were doing last year, because last year was the 50th anniversary, and the numbers they're being compared to, this analyst, who we're going to get into detail today, has said he doesn't think the numbers are going to be near the projections. Additionally, the Disney Plus streaming service, not under control. They're trying to launch an ESPN streaming service, which would have to cost something like $33 a month to be viable, and it's not expected that that's really realistic. And of course, Hulu is up in the air, and they still have to negotiate that with Comcast. While I believe they'll be able to do a deal with Comcast and it will not be a problem, it's still a very big transaction, and who knows, I might not be right about that. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. I'm trying to get to 25,000 subscribers, so if you can subscribe, please do subscribe. What is a death spiral? A death spiral refers to a collapse in a market due to a cascade of events typically unforeseen. In accounting, death spiral refers to decisions cascading into even worse decisions relating to costs that get out of control. Things are getting out of control at Disney, and that is why this analyst has said today the stock needs to get a downgrade. It's not the first analyst to say this. This is the third one that I've seen in a month that are saying, yo, watch out. Disney is not as good a looking stock as it was yesterday. This one comes from MarketWatch. Disney stock gets a downgrade. We have our doubts about ESPN and more. And usually when we talk about Disney, we don't even talk about the problem with ESPN. But there is a serious problem with ESPN, and we'll get to it. KeyBank moves to the sidelines on Disney amid concerns about ESPN's evolution, poor movie debuts, and high theme park expectations that he does not think they're going to be able to meet. KeyBank Capital Markets analyst Brandon Nispel sees meaningful uncertainty for Disney, one reason he's downgrading the media name. Nispel has various concerns about Disney, including that expectations for its theme park business are too high and that the company faces a daunting journey as it contemplates a standalone streaming future for its flagship service, ESPN. You can understand why this analyst would look at the idea of a standalone ESPN service and say, okay, wait, you need to fix Disney Plus first. If you can fix Disney Plus, get it to break even, then get it to make some money, okay, we may have some confidence in you being able to do it again with ESPN, even though that's a much more difficult streaming service to launch. But at least this analyst is not confident in Disney's ability to do it. While this note might call the bottom, we have our doubts, he wrote in a note to clients as he lowered his rating on the stock to sector weight from overweight last Wednesday. He added that he and his team, quote, prefer to step aside, acknowledging meaningful uncertainty and wait for further catalysts as buying the dip has been a losing trade. So he's talking about stepping aside. He's saying, we don't think you should buy it. We're not going to buy it. We're not going to recommend that you buy it. When he's talking about catalysts, he's talking about major things that might actually help Disney, or something outside the company or inside the company. Buying when the stock price was low, buying the dip, as they call it, has only resulted in the stock price going down and people losing the money that they invested. Within the theme parks business, Nispel looked at domestic geolocation data for Disney and Universal Theme Park, and he determined some Florida weakness for the first 2 months of the quarter. Meanwhile, Walt Disney World will be compared to a year ago period in which it celebrated its 50th anniversary. Quote, we worry that tough comparable numbers are not properly reflected in consensus estimates, Nispel wrote. The company could face other challenges in parks, including around margins given a new labor contract in Florida. The new labor contract that Disney was forced to sign in Florida by their workers makes them pay people more. Pay people more? Unless you can raise your prices, you're going to have less profit to work with. And that's their situation. As for the company's streaming business, Nispel took the view that the entertainment giant hasn't done enough to differentiate itself in a way that improves performance on churn or the portion of consumers who opt out and leave the service. That's what churn means. Churn is when people drop the service. Quote, while Disney has started to drive pricing, meaning increase their prices successfully, we have yet to see Disney services separate from peers from a churn standpoint. So when people drop the Disney service, it's just as bad as how they're dropping any of their other competitors. It's not any better. Even though Disney should be able to do better on churn because it has a bundling advantage. So that when you're quitting Disney, you're also, for example, quitting Hulu in many cases because they merged the two together in a very affordable package, which has also been a huge advantage to Disney for Disney Plus. And even with that extra advantage, their numbers aren't where they need to be, and the drop-off churn rate is actually high. We believe this speaks more to a structural element of churn within the industry that is unlikely to go away. The example that this analyst is taking is saying, look, I'm going to even give Disney the benefit of the doubt here and say it's not their fault. Maybe it still is, but he's going to say, no, it's not their fault. It's the industry's fault, which means it's basically an unfixable problem until everyone in the industry somehow figures out how to solve it. The company is likely to need to monetize existing subscribers better through price increases while establishing a lower price subscription advertising tier to retain subscribers. So he's saying they need to raise prices even more on Disney Plus, which they do plan to do. But of course, at some point, they're going to continue to raise prices, put less content on it, put content on it that people really aren't all that excited about, and then raise prices. It's going to increase people dropping the service. He had further concerns about the company's roadmap as it reportedly evaluates how to make ESPN into a standalone streaming service. That evolution could wind up, quote, materially harder than we initially thought, he noted. Since Disney allocates about 30% of its $30 billion content spending every year to sports, he said he thinks the break-even price for such a service would be $33 a month to each consumer. So are you willing to spend $33 a month to be able to stream ESPN? That is the issue. And he doesn't think so. His survey work has left him with doubts that many consumers will not pay that price. Quote, we believe this level of average revenue per user seems highly unlikely, where these data points make us cautious as Disney's cash cow may have a worse future in streaming versus linear than we originally anticipated. And this is the biggest problem Disney is facing most recently, at least in this category, is that linear is their cable channels. They have been making an absolute fortune putting out their cable channels and just getting this check every month from the cable company. Millions on top of millions of dollars, really in the billions of dollars. However, that is drying up. The cable company business is drying up. People are cutting cords. A lot of people are doing just streaming. They're not tied into that business anymore. So Disney needs to replace that somehow, and they're trying to replace it with streaming, but it's not effective so far. And this analyst has his doubts about their ability certainly to do that with ESPN, but of course, how are they going to even think about doing that with the rest of their cable channels? He also had questions about big budget films, noting the recent weak performance of Lightyear and Elemental from Pixar. Those poor showings seem to reflect, quote, less of an animation superhero slump at the box office and more of a structural reality that consumers will expect to watch this type of content at home, he commented. Now, of course, if you follow a lot of YouTube channels, and you follow what's been going on with Disney over the last couple of years, you know that they destroyed the Star Wars franchise. You know that they have completely messed up the Marvel franchise, putting Captain Marvel in the middle of the Avengers when she had no business being there, pushing her out as, hey, I'm a female superhero. It was done so carelessly and so egregiously that people began to lose interest in Marvel at a time where they had built so much good momentum for Marvel and so much interest in Marvel internationally. It was an incredible franchise, but they blew it because they went way too woke. They couldn't control themselves. As a result, people have had it with Marvel. Now people have had it with Pixar. The failure of Strange World, the failure of Lightyear, the failure of Elemental, and now the failure of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny coming up on June 30th. Everyone expects that to lose money. Even Disney knows that's going to lose money. They spent $300 million making that movie, and God knows $100 million, $150 million marketing it. They would have to do $1 billion to break even theatrically with that. They're not going to. Of course, there'll be extra right sales to their streaming service, to broadcast, to international markets. There will be additional sales, but it's still going to lose money. And this guy Nipsel is starting to ask the question that I've been asking, which is, if Disney can't do this anymore, if they can't make $1 billion theatrical movie anymore, and they can't do it on a regular basis, are the days of a $200 million plus production done? He said Disney may have to fundamentally rethink its content creation strategy, because they can't spend $200 million on Elemental and not recoup a large percentage of that, at least 60%, if not 80 to 100% of it, from their theatrical marketing. When it's in movie theaters, you can't just rely on, oh, we're going to get big money from the streaming service, because the streaming service will pay their production division for the rights to show the film, but it's not going to make up a $200 million production budget. It's just not. It's not viable. That's why Strange World, they were contemplating, should we release Strange World just on the streaming service? And they thought about it and they decided, no, we're going to go theatrical for a number of reasons. And they went theatrical, but of course, they lost a fortune doing it, almost $150 million. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Do you think that Disney is in a serious death spiral? Do you think they are in serious trouble? And do they have a shot at turning this around? I look at the company and I say, well, I mean, it's a $160 billion company, got almost a 40 price to earnings ratio, which means for every dollar they make, you multiply that by 39, and that is the value of their stock. They could be a much bigger company if they let themselves be profitable, if they did the things that they knew made money and they weren't so obsessed with destroying their intellectual properties with the latest progressive agenda. They could fix this company, but I don't think they're going to fix the company. I think they're in trouble. It's so illogical that I would almost expect them to fix the company, because why would you let this billions and billions of dollars they could be making if they just got reasonable about their intellectual properties, if they were a little bit more strategic about what they were doing with the streaming service, they could turn this thing around in like 12 months. But it doesn't look like they are going to. It looks like they're going in the other direction. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Disney's in a death spiral? Do you think they might turn the company around? Always love to see what you think. Always love your ideas. I really appreciate you guys. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.